Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Garden Shed podcast. I think this one's episode 45. So, how's everyone's week's gone? I'll be honest with you. So, yeah, I'll talk about how the first week's gone. A bit of housekeeping sort of stuff first. But I can't, I'll be honest with you, I'm just excited. Like, I've said this before, I enjoy what I do. I really, really do. And I've been back, so I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I've been away Friday and Saturday. I'll tell you why in a little bit. But it's just been so nice to be back working. It's routine. Routine is so important. It's your purpose. You've got to have a purpose in life. And as sad as it sounds, my purpose is to work for my business because my business provides me the lifestyle that I'm able to want, and what I want and what I deserve. It's the interaction, the social side, as daft as it sounds, speaking to customers, love them or hate them, I'll talk about that a little bit. But it's just nice to be back working. It really, really is. And I am a big believer in this. I think that of all the people that I've spoken to in my life that I could say, or they've said, a happy people, chirpy people, positive people, through conversation or just chatting to them, it's always eventually turned out that they enjoy their job, or they've enjoyed their job, or they've loved their job. And I just think it's so important. I really, really do. I think, I was speaking to somebody this week, so I've stopped offering power washing as one of my services. I've mentioned it a few times, throughout videos. And one of the main reasons is, and this is what I've said to customers, I do not enjoy it. And I've said to them that I can't charge for something and offer something if my heart's not in it, if I don't enjoy doing it. Yes, I'll, me being me, I will try my absolute best. But if ever there's a problem, ever something is said, or it's not that good, or you've missed a bit, it will always come back in my head that it was like that because my heart wasn't in it. But gardening, YouTube, what I do, yeah, really, really into it. So, a little bit of housekeeping. Buxton's, I've mentioned them a few times on various different videos. They've got an open day, Friday the 13th. Fingers crossed. More so for me. I don't believe in it per se, but you never know. So yeah, they've got an open day. I will be sharing it out on the socials throughout the week. So yeah, pop along. I'll be there in some capacity, just having a little walk around, having a look at what tools there is. Well, yeah, feel free to pop down, have a look around. I think it's open to all. I'll put all the links in, on my Facebook pages throughout. But yeah, check them out, guys. It's a fun day out, or a fun afternoon out. And from what I've seen of pictures of the previous ones, they do, genuinely tend to go a little bit above and beyond. And it looks like it's a fantastic trip out, or a fantastic morning out. So yeah, check them out, guys. And as well, there's a cafe next door. She does pretty bang on stuff. So yeah, it's a win-win, isn't it, really? Breakfast sandwich and looking at tools. Banging, in my opinion. So I've had a load of stickers done. So what I'm going to do is when I put a question of the week sort of post up, I've said on the post that basically the people that, the best comments in my eyes, and it could be for any reason, like literally it's whatever sort of tickles my pickle when I look at it. Basically I'll pick random people. It will be random to an extent, and I'll send you some stickers. Yeah, they're silly little stickers, but they make me chuckle. If you want to sticker, you do your stickers of your own, and you want to do like a sticker swap, just hit me up. Just message me, and I'll send some out to you. It'd be nice, really, because it's adding to that sense of community. I've got on the back of the bulkhead, I've got on my van where I film, some of the videos, I've put stickers up, and it'd be nice to sort of fill that. So yeah, and if you haven't got stickers of your own, don't go out and rush them just to do this. Just send me a message, and if I'm in a good mood, which I'm 99% of the time, I'll shoot you some across. But yeah, so stickers, and then alternatively, when you see me at Grounds Fest or I do my little meet-up in May, I'll bring a load of stickers with me. So yeah, I think that's the housekeeping side done. So what I want to have a chat about in this episode is how my week and how your week has gone, because it has been for me the first proper week back, and I think for the majority of people in this industry, it's been the first proper week back. Now, what I mean by proper week back is that yeah, we've all been working, haven't we? We haven't just magically flew south and then just appeared back here. We have all been working, but this is the first week back of the 2026 season as it is. It's the first week back of, grass cutting, regular maintenance. So if you haven't gone back, or you're, because I know it depends up and down the country, and also weather-wise, I think some parts of the country have seen snow. Let me know, are you guys back cutting on March the 1st, or do you give it another couple of weeks? The main topic for this video is I want to have a chat with you about my quoting process, because I think that's probably the most important sort of interaction you will have with a customer. So I'll talk about that, and I've got loads of other stuff written down. So let's get on with it then, shall we, guys? So as you can tell at the start of the video, I am very excited to be back to work. Yeah, I can't say any more really. This week has gone very, very well. We've booked everybody in. So I've done a video. So the video that's out now, that's my Monday basically. And I said in the video I was expecting a cancellation or cancellations. I was expecting to turn up to properties and basically have to walk away because they're too boggy. Now my boggy properties are actually this week, Monday. So fingers crossed basically. Now in my head, if I turn up to a customer or the customer rings and says, "Oh Sam, it's just too boggy to garden," it's not the end of the world. It's, in many ways it is what it is. We've had a lot of rain, and for me it's a case of that's no problem at all, Mrs. Such and Such. I will come back in 2 weeks, and that's it. I am very firm with customers now that if they say, "Oh, don't do it today, do it next week," it will always be the next time I am with them. There's no deviation, because if you book it someone in every fortnight and you go a week after you should have gone, they're going to expect you to be back in a fortnight, aren't they? So we don't do that because it's wrecking a schedule. But no, there's been no cancellations all week. Everything's gone, in air quotes, tickety-boo. It's all the visits have been performed. It's just been brilliant. It really, really has been good. I did have at the start when I rung and booked people in, there was a couple of people that were like, "Oh, look Sam, could we cut it at the end of March instead?" Now I don't like doing that for obvious reasons, but you've got to look at the situation. If it's a fast cutting lawn, so I did have a lady, she wanted a cut in April. She was a shit customer, if I'm being honest with you. She was a late payer, she was unreliable, she was just a shit customer. And she said, "Could you do it at the end of April?" Basically, she tried to dictate a little bit too much. So she wanted it doing in April, and she wanted it doing every 4 weeks instead of the usual visit time what we had last year. I said, "I can't do it." And she said, "Well, what part can't you do?" I said, "I can do it on a 4 weekly, visit, and it will be a new price. Basically, it'll be just under double." She didn't want that. So in the end, I just told her, "No, we can't work for you. Thank you for the work." Basically, I did butter it up a little bit better than that, but it was getting to a point where it was a back and forth texting exchange. I'd already given her the brush off and basically thanked her for her previous work, and this is when she wanted the explanation on what can't we do for her anymore. So yeah, the couple of customers that requested visits in April and in the end of March instead. They're good people. The grass is fairly slow going. Even last season it never seemed to put on a huge amount of growth. So I'll be honest with you, I am pretty fine with it. If I'm being honest with you, you can't force something that's not there. You can't flog that. You can't say, no, Mister Such and Such, I need it to be cut in March. If they've made their mind up, they've made their mind up, and it is as simple as that. We had a near crash, and I was talking to somebody about this today actually. It's amazing how things can just change in this industry. This is it. Yes, gardening businesses fail, quite often or not, by death of 1,000 cuts. So you've not got the right work, you've got the wrong sort of customers, you're not charging the right price, your head's not fully in it. And basically all those things over time will stop you running your gardening business. But then there's other things that can stop your gardening business. Illness, if you're naughty. I've heard of that in my area, where people have committed a crime and they've been sentenced to a year in a slammer, and that's pretty much stopped their business dead in its tracks. And then alternatively, it could be, so this wouldn't have stopped my gardening business, would it have been affected? So I was driving to a new job, and it was down a little country lane, and I wouldn't class myself as an expert driver, but I think definitely one thing that's missing in people, not everybody, but some people, is what I would call road sense, where you look ahead. You're not just looking at the front of your bonnet. As you're driving, you were obviously paying full attention to your surroundings, but you were looking a little ahead. You were looking over the hedges to see if there's something coming round that blind bend. You're reading the road, you're looking at the road signs, you're looking at the road conditions. And I think some people haven't got that. They just assume that it should be clear, and they'll just go full pout. And that's what happened. So as I was driving down a country road, there was very, very few passing places, and as I was going round a bend, it was like a sweeping bend, but it was a low hedge, and I looked over the hedge and I could see basically a car coming, and I couldn't see a passing spot. So I started to slow down. The van behind me, I don't know whether he was on his phone, whether he was on his own planet, not ours, I just do not know. But I heard these brakes were screeching. They weren't screeching because they got a little bit of shit in the caliper. You could hear like the wheels slipping, the tyres slipping. Now this probably happened in a second or 2 seconds, but it felt a lot longer, as things do. And you could hear his tyres slipping on the road. And I looked at my rear through my mirror, and I could see him getting closer and closer and closer. And at one point he got really close to my bumper at the back, as in the back doors. So I had to let off the brake and accelerate, basically, to give this guy some more bloody space, because he just was not braking. He was going so quickly, and I didn't see him in my mirror until I heard the brakes. So he must have been absolutely bouting it around the corner. And the guy in front, luckily, he saw what was happening, and he was slowing right down as well, as he should be, because he saw the obstacle in the road, i.e. me. And it was really close, so much so that when we all stopped, I was about a foot off this bloke's bumper in the front, because I had to give the guy behind me so much room to brake. And then the bloke behind, he was ever so close. Honestly, I think he had to have new pants. I'm hoping he will not be doing that again. And the guy reversed, so because there's another van behind me, the guy, he reversed back to a pull-in space, and we passed, and he was sort of pointing at that bloke and is in the van behind and shaking his head. I think he was mouthing like they shouldn't be that quick or something. And I just went on my way. And I'll be honest with you, it did shit me up a little bit, because that was on like a Wednesday, and I'm thinking to myself, my van, if that gets hit on the back doors, that's a write-off. The insurance company will not repair it. If his insurance company pays out, whatever it is, I will have to pay for that damage, or it will inconvenience me. Obviously, hopefully it'll get sorted on the insurance, but it's going to take time. There's downtime. Best case scenario, the insurance company says, yeah, we'll give you a courtesy van. I don't, but then you've got to put everything in an unfamiliar van, and you're driving an unfamiliar van, and your risks of. This is why I like my van, because it's already fucked. I can't knacker it anymore. I can't put any more dents and scratches, but a new van I can, or other people can, should I say. So it really did. It sort of shook me up for about 20-30 minutes, and the things that was going through my mind was, how quickly things can go. You're on top of the world, and then suddenly you could be, renting a new van while yours get bloody repaired. And if it does get wrote off, which it probably will because it's over 10 years old now, but anyway. But I think sometimes you're better off not thinking about that as much as I've just said I've been thinking about it, because in that situation there was nothing that I could have done. But it is what it is. We carry on, don't we, guys? So I've put the prices up for a few of my customers. Now, I am going to do at some point an episode talking about pricing and money, and I try not to talk about it, but I find things very interesting in the sense that, so I met up with another gardener over the weekend, and we were talking about pricing. I was showing him some jobs that I do, and his prices were either the same as my price, or a little bit more, or a little bit less, and we were in a fiver. And this leads me to sort of think that there is such a thing as a universal price for jobs, whether you're up or down the country, and there is another indication that there is lawns that are only worth so much, and this gets onto the price. So what I mean by lawns are only so much, as in they're small. They're only going to be a £25 lawn cut, £30 lawn cut, and you'll probably be thinking, well, this isn't the way to run a business. But I've done lawns now for 4 years, 3 years, and I've never put the price up because I priced them right at the very get-go. I priced them at, £20, £30. I've got a couple of lawns where, due to their issues, i.e., they're up and down a set of stairs, they've been priced a little bit more at the beginning. So it's like £35 for a lawn cut. And it's a 20-minute job. Yeah, you've got to hoy your mower up a set of stairs and your strimmer, and parking's a bit crap, but for the most part, it's not the end of the world. And like I said, it's a £30 lawn cut. So £35. So for me, they've been priced right from the start. Even if you put them up 10%, 5%, over 3 to 4 years, they're going to be pushing £40-45. And at that point in time, the customer is, maybe I'm overthinking it, maybe they won't, because they'll value the service and they'll understand that the bills go up. But then flipping it on its head, I'm happy with what I get. I'm happy with, if I do this amount of jobs, I get this amount of money. Price as well, I have put the prices up for new customers. I think I mentioned this in one of the videos. I'm making a conscious decision to basically put an extra, whatever I come up with the price in my head, I will put extra on it, as in not much more, normally a £5. If it's over £100, looking at probably an extra £10, so basically 10% on top of what I already think the price should be. And what I've decided to do with all these new jobs that I'm doing, where I'm putting the extra £5 on, it's an extra £5 that can go straight into basically the fuck up fund, as I've mentioned in previous videos. We had 2 breakages last year with glass, so it'll be nice to have the money set aside for that already. And then I put the lawn cuts, the price up for a few other customers. I ended up, the last lot of price rises I did, I put them up to by £2.50, and so that meant that I was doing lawns at like £27.50. It was just, I've just put them up. They're all a round number. It's either ends in a 5 or ends in a 0, and it's just easier that way. I've picked up a few new customers. I picked up a lady the other day, and she's a lovely little lady actually. She wanted a conifer trim. She wanted a bit of a tidy around the rockery, and she wanted the lawns cutting on a regular basis. And she's, I've done all of it now, and I'm going to go back in 2 weeks to do the lawn for her, and she's over the moon with it. And I genuinely believe it's down to, not fully down to it, but the quoting process, and I'll talk about that, as I said, towards the end. When you do quotes and when you do work, it's tempting. It's not tempting, but whether you're tempted or whether you feel like you're being forced into it, because the customer's like, it's a bit much, to knock your price down. I think there's no harm. You do you, basically. However you want to do it, you do it. But it's different now. So for me, I probably would, if it's over winter time and there is a little bit of wiggle room in a job, I would look at doing the price a little bit cheaper, because it's winter. You can call it a winter discount, whatever. I'd never advertise a winter discount, but basically winter is probably the best chance a customer will get, is me dropping the price down. But I think when you start the season, like now, and customers are wanting a discount or expecting a discount, or you're on about applying a discount, I would say don't do it, because there's going to be more people, and that's the only point from this conversation. At least at winter time, work is a little bit more precious, but now there will be somebody else. So if somebody's giving you the golden promise, if you do it for me at my price, I'll recommend you to all my friends, or if you do a good job, I'll recommend you. I'll put something on Facebook, because they never do. The amount of people that have said we'll leave reviews, we'll recommend, share your post, they never do. It's just, I don't know. But like I said, do not fall for it, basically, guys. You don't get any favours for being the cheap person, put it that way. So I think everybody else has had a good week looking at it. So I did ask on the Facebook groups about how your first week gone. So I'll read a few of them out, because it's always good to sort of hear off other people then, isn't it, guys? Fire the old iPad up. So, Thomas Humphrey, I'm picking up some right grim jobs of late. Money is not even that good. And again, that's the classic one. At least a well-paid shit job is acceptable, but when it's, rubbish and rubbish paid. I have found it's weird, because I've found that the real dross work, it sounds horrible, comes in around, if you're getting people ringing up for, I need my grass cut, and it's not been cut, and it's like the end of May. My opinion, the red flags are screaming then, because, or any job, I need a gardener, and you can just tell, I don't know what it is, it's round about, especially for regular maintenance, if it's coming in like May and June, and they're saying I need a regular and reliable gardener, there's something wrong, isn't there? Like, don't get me wrong, it could just be the fact that the previous gardeners stopped, or they've been managing it, but you can tell when it's not been cut all season, and there's normally a reason. I did have one lady, bless her, I don't know what went, I think I know what went on with her. So I took her on 2 years ago. So this is the third season now. When I first took her on, it was a fortnightly cut, like clockwork. She wanted a fortnightly cut, and she was, every time I turned up, she was as pleased as punch. And then the start of the next season, I rung her up, and she said, "Luke, I'm not being funny with you, I'm not being, difficult, but my boilers blew up, and I can't afford you." I said, "That's no problem at all." I did it. She was a nice lass, but that's the thing, she gave a Christmas tip. She wasn't tight. I think it's just that there genuinely is people that are literally living pension to pension, and if it is that they get something like this happening, it does bugger them up. And I said to her, "Luke, would you want me to come and just give it one mow? Because by the time I got back to her, or she'd gotten hold of me, or I'd gotten hold of her, it was getting on for like halfway through March. I said, I'll do it for free, because it's only a small lawn. And bless her, she says, no, I pay my own way, I can't have that off you. I said, it's no problem. Do you want me to give you a call next month? And I think I only cut that lawn about 3 or 4 times, and that's how it's been. And when I rung, that was how it was last year, and I think it's going to be the same this year. So I rung her up and I said, would you like me to book you in for your first grass cut? Oh, yes, please, but I want it doing in May. and, and the house is how you imagine it to look, by the way, because that's when the garden doesn't get done very well, very often, sorry. And that's it. What do you do? This is the thing. She's not tight. When you go to her and the grass is a foot tall in May, she will pay the price. And I've actually said to her that it's going to be working out cheaper if you have it done every fortnight than saving all of her jobs done and having it done 3 times a year. But I think whether that's a money, I do not know at all. I really don't. I don't push it. I don't pressure her. I've said my bit, like what I've just said to you, and I'll leave it at that. So, yeah. Matty Cooper, 40 grass cuts done. That's just smashing, that is. In a week, That's really... And that was probably when I put it out on like Wednesday, Thursday, so, good on him. Only had to cancel one cut due to the lawn being far too boggy to even walk on. Classic new build lawn. I went to that lawn, so I don't know if I mentioned last week, a guy he lives in a new build, and I was going to cut, so I texted him last week to say, could I come and cut your lawn for you? You've got your first lawn visit, and he said to me, oh no, it's too boggy to mow. We need to have a chat about it. That's what he said. So I went to him on Thursday, and I walked on it, and it was fine to mow. It's just a new build. It literally is a new build lawn, and it's shit. Dies around the edges at summer. I don't know what they've laid it on. I think they've laid it on part rubble, part soil. So when the sun hits it, it bakes it off, basically. And he said to me about aeration. He's been reading about aeration. And I just said, in my personal and professional opinion, it will do nothing, because I've seen where he's dug bits of lawn up and it's just rubble or clay. So it won't do anything. And bless him, he's went out and bought liquid gypsum, and he's tried at his end. And I did say to him, look, we can rent a machine, I'll do it for you, we can do whatever. And I just turned it round on him. I says, how I see this lawn is if I'm looking at it now, it's green. If it's full of water, it's still green. It still looks like a lawn. I says, what is your issue with it? And he said that his issue is when he walks to he's got like a bar at the bottom of his garden, he gets his feet boggy, and that's basically annoys him. I said, well, how about if we put a path down the middle, and then it doesn't matter how boggy it gets? And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, actually that'll work. So anyway, I'm gonna have to rattle through these guys because we're getting on for nearly half an hour. So Lee Robinson, honestly feel relieved. One of those gardens you don't really like. Oh, that was a reply to another one. Lynn Turpin, it's stuck in Dubai, still trying to get home. It's like that as well, is the fuel. I'll talk about it in a bit. So, waiting on customers paying invoices, van ignition has shut itself, Strimmer decided to shit its exhaust, not bad for 5 days. I think I've messaged, so message me, I'll send, that was Ricky Lee Reville. Message me, I'll send you some stickers to hopefully, make you feel better. David Nunn, don't think I've had a day off since the first week of Jan, even in the snow. Bills to pay. Michael Ashley, van failed MOT on Tuesday. Jesus, mate. Needs to be looked at by a diesel specialist to get it through, so I've got a cheap old Peugeot for the meantime. Oh, yeah. Paul Stevenson, first week, what is this you talk about? Lee Robinson, one of my customers' first visit this week. I was about 5 minutes late because of roadworks. When I asked for payment later, they paid but were cheesed off because I did less than the 2 hours. And it's put in brackets, when I started charging by the hour and therefore binned me. I had this customer for about 5 years. We're from my early days when I worked by the hour for the past years. I've learnt to charge by the visit with no set time, but aim for around 2 hours without their knowledge. I'm relieved because this customer is mainly weeding and brambles and it's helped my diary. Anyone new should be aware that this is what can happen when you charge by the hour. That's it. Oh my god, it's so frustrating because you could do just the best job in the world and be finished 5 minutes early. I remember I used to have a guy that was hourly and I got rid of him. This is when I was charging hourly, and then as I was moving over I quickly realised that there's no room for this bloke at all. And I remember on one of the visits I was 5 or 10 minutes late. Again, roadworks. It was an half an hour trip to this guy's house, and as I was sort of shooting down to him, I always budgeted for, I'd set off at 8:30 to get to him for 9, and he looked at me, and it was the first visit back, and I was 10 minutes late. I can understand, but then I can't, because what is the end of the world? He works from home, but anyway. So he looked at me and he goes, "You're not setting the best of example, are you? 10 minutes late on your first day back." I'm thinking, sorry boss, shall I go and clock in? So I explained to him about roadways, and he said to me, "Oh wow, if you I think it's in future, if you just set off 10 minutes early, you've got no worry about being late, haven't you?" I just said, "So I have to go up 10 minutes of my day every other week just on the off chance that there's traffic being caused?" Like I said, fucking idiots, mate. Yeah. Phil Coleman, still not gone back after my neck injury, but I've managed the strength to start my blower on my mower. Looking forward to being useful again. I think I did comment on that, so I think I've got his address. I'll send him some stickers. But this is the thing. I did explain to him, say to him, is you are useful. We're all useful, no matter what. We're all grafters. We're all people who put ourselves out there. I know when I had my sciatica, and I think there's another chap who had. Oh, that's it, Gareth Payne. I wish, still sat at home with my mate sciatica. Frustrating isn't a word. And I think I said to Gareth, when I had sciatica last year, and I've been suffering with it for probably about 10 years, and when I had it last year, it got me mentally because it absolutely crippled me. And it got in my head, and I'm not afraid to admit this. I was snapping, I was angry, and I can imagine, like, if someone's laid off with the neck and the back, it does feel, you know what I mean, it does get in your head. So don't let it beat you, mate. Really, really don't. Let the customers do that. Moaning about you. So that's it for this sort of, I think I've got any more. Nathan Law, first week I never stopped. Matt Reed, first week back, laughing emoji. Apart from when I've been away on holiday, I've been flat out cutting hedges, trees, and yes, lawns. I'm in Cornwall. No, good on you, guy. Honestly, you've just got it. You've just got to keep going all the time. Keep going, keep grafting. So I've gone away for a couple of days. I went up to the Peak District. I met up with a couple of people. You know who you are. Lovely to see you. I do quite often say this, that if you want, if you're free and you live local to me and you just want to sort of have a chat to another gardener, if I can, I will meet up with you. I do have a fairly open sort of, diary. There's no charge to it, nothing of the sort. If you just want to have a chat, meet up, talk about your business, whatever, I'll try my best to help you. Emails in the doobly-doo as usual. So I went away for a couple of days, and the reason for it is I think I'm booked up for the next 2 to 3 months already. So I've done my diary. We've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just chocker now. Friday, Saturday, and every other Sunday. Every other Sunday is also booked up for half a day with a commercial job, and also the money that I want to earn in that day. So we've got like half a day every other Sunday, and so as such, I've only really got Friday and Saturday. I deliberately left them free to go away, but we've just had a house clearance come in, So that's going to be taking probably the next month, and I think there's another house clearance provisionally booked in for after that. So yeah, and it's just like I said, it's amazing how sort of quickly things change and work changes, where you're doing, and I always say this, I do my diary at the start of every single month, and you're looking and there's empty spaces, and every month I get worried. I'm thinking, bloody hell, I've seen a lot of blank spaces here, but it always fills up. So yeah, very, very, very happy with that. So like I said, I've gone away now because I know this probably will be one of not the last trips, but definitely for a few weeks, few months even. It could be where we're sort of grounded. I've got a trip booked to my birthday. I want to go away for 4 or 5 days, look at the seaside and all that sort of stuff. So I've got that to look forward to in May. But we've got other stuff on. We've got the little meet up in May. We've got the next week. I've got the Buxton's thing, so that'll be quite nice. So yeah, like I said, it's not all work, but it is work sometimes. And that's another thing. It's nice to get actual money coming in where you're doing full days, full money, and it builds the accounts back up. And I've said this many, many times, and I'll never hide behind this. Money isn't the be and end all, but it bloody is. It really is. Having money and having bills, you don't worry about it. Having money and having problems, you're fine. Having no money or not much money and having bills is stressful. Having problems and not much money is stressful, and I don't like stress. I don't want it at all. So anyway, main topic for this episode is going to be my quoting process. So I've seen like other people on the internet, YouTube's mention their quoting process. I don't think I'm breaking the mold here. I do things not a little bit different to other people, but I do things, like I said, my own little way. But I'm not breaking the mold here. I think some do it this way, some don't. So I'll try and sort of guide you through it, but I might be like bipping and bopping here and there and everywhere as usual. So I believe, and so most of my work is coming through from Facebook at this point in time, and the same with word of mouths. Now, when people ring up, it's very hard to sort of track that. I've got to make a point of saying to them, where did you get my number from, basically. And sometimes I forget. But one of the things I do with no matter what work, where it comes in, I am a big believer in is striking while the iron's hot. I think on Facebook especially, people want it now. If people have found you on Facebook, odds on they found 2 or 3 other gardeners, and they probably rung, and the first person that's answered, you were basically the person. And then they'll ring until somebody answers. And if 2 people before you haven't answered, and then you're the third one, I try and get in there as soon as possible. And I genuinely think that's how it is now, unfortunately. So I will, same day if I can. Like most of my work's local. It's not like it's a big area where I live. So if I can, I will visit them there and then. Not like in the evening, you know what I mean, or if I'm passing. I've even done it before where I've said I'll be with you in 10 minutes because I'm just round the corner or I'm just down the road. So strike while the iron's hot. And it's amazing actually that, yeah, like I said. So how my quoting process goes is typically when people ring me up, I will have a little bit of small talk. I will get a few details off them, property, so at the very least I'll get the full address, property name, a few basic directions. So if there's a lot of little villages near me where it's in the sticks basically, so I try and get a few little details. If it's in the sticks and even they say to me, oh, it's a bit tricky, try and get details of the property, what cars on the drive. And to be fair, I always ask that anyway, because even if it's an area that I know, trying to count the numbers as you go is hard. But if you say what car's on your drive, oh, I've got a blue Passat, I can look for a blue Passat, and it's more simpler basically. So I try and get a few details off them like that. I try and like I said, a little bit of small talk. How are you? You had a good day? Like I said, a little bit of small talk. That's basically weighing them up as a person. I'm trying to sort of work out who they are. I ask them a rough sort of description of the works, and then this is my sort of, do I want this job or don't? So if I say, what is it you like doing? If they say, oh yes, we've got a lot of weeding, a lot of border work, or it's a job that I don't want, that's when I'll say to them, well, unfortunately, we're not taking on any bookings for weeding at the moment, or heavy border work, or landscaping, or soft landscaping. Basically, I make my excuses there and then. I do genuinely try to visit every single job, because you never know, you might not be able to do the borders, but you might be able to vac the gutters out. There's jobs that are just straight no straight away, so I need, me back garden re-gravelling, or borders weeding, or even if I've had a bit of small talk, I don't like the sound of them. They live in an area that I don't normally go to. I do ask other questions like, have you got side access, have you got pets? And again, pets is a big one. If you've got dogs, you just know you're going to catch it at some point, really. Same with, if you've got side access. One of my standing company policies is we do not go through people's houses. There's no job that I would go through somebody's house to do. It's just not worth it. If you scratch the floor, trip over something, they trip over something, it's just not worth it. Another thing as well, they've got to be in, so that instantly there's going to be at least one time that they will forget. Side access, oh yes, I've got a gate. Is your gate normally left unlocked? You've got to be a little bit careful. This is why I say have a little bit of small talk with them, because you're asking very probing questions, and some people might not want to give their address. They might feel a bit uncomfortable with that, but it's a necessary one. And then if you say, well, what's your side access like? Do you leave your gate unlocked? People can start thinking, bloody hell, we've wrong here. But again, if it's a recommendation and it's through Facebook, I'm hoping people can weed out that we're not some like thieves, basically. So if you say to me, we've got no side access, you've got to come through my house, again, it's an ever so sorry, we do not take on any properties where we've got to do that. Even I will entertain them, but again, it's pushing it right down towards basically the category of I won't take this job on, is if it's like terrace houses where you've got to go through other people's gardens. Oh yes, there's a ginnel down the bottom. Literally every single terrace house I've ever done where there's like a ginnel, and you've got to go through like 6 people's gardens. It's a pain in the arse. It's just not worth it, because you're going through 6 different people's lives. You could have 5 of them that are tidy, and the last one could be a hoarder, and there could be shit everywhere, or dog mess everywhere, and it's just not worth it, in my personal opinion. So yeah, if all goes well, I will try and visit the customer ASAP. If it's a bit of a complex job, I just look them up on Google Maps. So if it is that, but I try and get if I can, I try and get as much information as possible before I go there, basically. So if it's a hedge reduction, if it's a tree, a big border, garden tidy, anything, have a look at Google Maps and just see what you're dealing with, really. So when you first go to them, this is basically your chance to shine. Now, I think how you want the customer to treat you and your business ultimately goes off how you show off yourself and your business. Now, I will go from work. So if I'm covered in grass clippings, I'll brush myself off. But if there's a few there, that is what it is. I'm a work outdoors. I'm a gardener. If I'm a bit dirty, again, I'm a gardener. Quite often, if people say like go to shake my hand, I'll show them my hand and I'll be like, look, I've got mud on it, or like grass clippings, and it's not you're dirty bugger. You work in the outdoors, and they'll still shake my hand and they'll go, mate, you're a grafter. You work outside. It says what it is. I personally think don't dress up, don't go home and put fresh uniform on. There has been times where I've put a fresh jumper on because, t-shirt's got that dirty, or, it's muddy, or it's grass all on it, or dust or whatever. But, you don't turn up in a suit. Don't turn up in your gym clothes. How you want to be seen and treated dictates from how you sort of want to be passed along yourself, basically. Turn up on time. So if you say to them, I'll be there after 6, don't get there after 8 o'clock. Let them know if you're running late. If you say I'll be there at 7, turn up at 7. If you're there, I'll be after 6, turn up in a reasonable time. I always park on the road if I can. I don't like just parking straight on the drive, because to me it seems a little bit, you know what I mean? I always just park on the road, and then when I do the job or go to do a job, I'll ask permission to park on their drive. I will typically 9 times out of 10 take business cards with me, and I'll give everybody, a business card, and on that is all of my details. So I said, here's my details. And I think as well, as daft as it sounds, it's like your form of ID. You're showing people that this is my business name, this is the name of trade under, here's my email address, here's my telephone number, here's a few services, what I do. I like to do that. It just sort of, it comes across that little bit more professional. Same with the uniform, it's all branded up. The van is distinctive, it's bright green, it's not sign written, but I always think it goes part and parcel, basically. And then again, it's pretty much the same as what we've already done. So a little bit of small talk. Hey, how are you? Oh, we've got a lovely dog, lovely house, and then we'll go on to what is it you need doing. Do you want to show me? Get the customer to show you. If it's a complex job, or it's there's a lot of moving parts, well, I'll talk about it in a bit, but get them to show you. Ask them stuff like, after the first visit, what would you like to see? So obviously if it's grass, you don't need to worry about that really. Or if it's just a border tidy. But if it's a garden maintenance visit, it can dictate the price heavily. So if you say to a customer, I just want my garden tidy. Well, a garden tidy could be £35, or it could be £135 every fortnight. Because if a customer says to you, yeah, well, Luke, I like it. Basically, I like a sort of a semi-wild look. I don't mind bits of stuff in with bits of stuff, as long as it's got a flower, as long as it's pretty, I don't mind it. And then if a customer says, oh well, I love where you can see soil around all of the plants. I don't want a single weed, I like the lawns edged right back and all that sort of stuff. You're going to have to spend a lot more time just weeding opposed to just titivating and tidying up. Don't be afraid to sort of go down the what's your budget route with a customer, how much you're looking at spending. I've done it in the past, and again, it gives you a rough idea, but you can't be beholden to it. I've said a few times to people is when they've had previous gardeners. So if they say to me, oh, I used to have a gardener, I've just said to them what, especially if I'm getting a few red flags or a few warning signs, I'll say, oh, well, what did he charge you, if you don't mind me asking? Oh, well, he was quite expensive. He charged me £12 an hour. And I've had that recently. And then again, you just explain to him. I had one a few years ago where she was paying, she goes, I've got 2 gardeners. I pay one £10 an hour because, while he's using the lawnmower, so it's a little bit more technical, and he does me shrubs. And then me weeding guy, I just pay him £8 an hour. She wanted me to do the weeding. And I gave her, she said, how much do you charge? I says, look, we're not even in the same country when it comes to pricing. I says, the reason, I said, I'm not being rude. I says, and I did tell her what the price is for the hourly rate. Even though I don't work to an hourly rate per se, but this job it was the easiest path, basically. And she did actually say to me, would you want to give it a go? And I just says no. and the reason is you just know where it's going to go, basically. You know, weeding's weeding. You know, somebody at £8 an hour will probably weed just as quickly as me. You know, I might be a tiny little bit more thorough. He might be a tiny little bit better. But for the most part, we're going to be doing a similar job, but the customer's going to be paying 4 or 5 times the price of what the old bloke was. And I think that's another thing. Don't be afraid to sort of not walk away as in flounce off or say, you know, this isn't for me and just go. But don't be afraid to explain to the customer that this job isn't for me, basically. You know, and obviously don't just go, I'm going, I'm gone. But anyway, I do tend to sort of, so one of the first things I do, so when I take their details down, I enter it into Zoho and I create a customer profile basically for the customer. And then when I get there, I will then start writing the quote out while I'm there. And I will write it out. So even if it's a grass cut, fortnightly, £25. Every customer gets a quote. What I have started doing is giving two prices. So if they want a fortnightly cut, £25. If they want a 4 weekly cut, £42, £40, whatever it is. And then the idea is it nips it in the bud when people say, oh, it's just not growing very quick, or I think it needs to be cut less, Sam. That's no problem at all. We'll swap over to the 4 weekly price, which will be £40, opposed to them expecting it to be the same price. And they do. They always do. And it leads to that conversation. But if you do it initially at the very start, you don't have to shock them with it, because it is a shock. The fact that you want you to do less but do more, basically. So type the quote up, and I will actually give them the quote there and then. I will show them the quote on the iPad. That's why I take the iPad, because it's a nice big screen. I'll show them the quote and I will say to them, what's your email address, and I'll get the quote over to you. I will take notes there and then off them. And if I have to sit in the van, I'll sit in the van and I'll type the quote up. But I will then go back to them, as in sit in the van, walk back down the drive. I won't drive away then come back. And I will then read the quote. I'll get them to go through the quote, and I will then read the quote through with them. And it's so important to do that, because it's amazing how many times things are missed off the quote. I explained to him that, you know, we will be doing, this is what we'll be doing on the first visit, this is what we're doing on the visit. And then, you know, I'll say to him, is there anything I've missed off? And hopefully they'll say, oh, actually, yeah, there was that other board around the back, or I want the frontages all doing. That's no problem. Or I'll just add it on, I'll just have to adjust it a little bit. You're nipping things in the bud before it happens. And then I'll then send them the quote. I'll give them the price there and then, by the way, and I'll give them the option, would you like me to book you in right now? Would you like me to book you in this evening? And I find people, that's how I find people want it to be. In my area and in my experience, people, they want a gardener to turn up when he says he'll turn up. They want a gardener to turn up, to give them the price there and then, and they will make their mind up. I'd say 9 times out of 10 when I quote, I give them the price there and then, and they know if it's for them or not, and they'll say there and then, yes, that'll be perfect, book me in, and they do. The 1 times out of 10, or the very, very rare times it does happen, is you will do that and they'll say, I'm going to have to think about it. I'll ask my husband, he deals with the money. I'll ask my wife, she deals with the money. I will get back to you. And like I said, out of all them people, the majority of times, they either never get back to you, or they do, and they say, oh yeah, it was too much money, or we found somebody cheaper, and that's fine. Every so often, I have had it where people have said that, and it is a case that they have got to ask the wife, and then they will call back and they'll say, yeah, we've had a look at it, we're fine with that, Sam. Crack on, basically. I think by turning up in a uniform, giving a business card, typing the quote up there and then, giving them a quote there and then, sending them a quote, giving the price there and then, going through ground rules, so explaining to them that I can see that you lock your gate, or if you have to lock your gate, you have to unlock it to get you in. You know, you explain to them that, any missed visits, we'll have to sort of, we can only do the frontages, which will be charged at, the minimum price. And that's one thing that I do. If it is that a customer, front to back lawn, they get the minimum price charge, which will be £25. If it's a £30 lawn, it's £25. Because what do you do? Just go away and then come back in 2 weeks' time and do double as much? I find that people weaponise the gate, where they will use the locked gate to basically control visits. So again, on the first visit, when you go there, sorry, with the quote, explain to them that, explain to your policies that, your policy is that, if we can only do the front, it's a minimum charge, because we've got to cover our costs for coming here. Our minimum charge is £20, £25, whatever it is. Just explain that to them. Just, I always do, a little bit of sort of, humility, humour, human touch. I always say to him, look, we do forget. If it is that you forget, I can then move on to sending you a text the night before. If it is that, you do forget again, then, we're going to have to start, charging you the minimum price. Every customer's different. Sometimes with some customers, you need the sugar cube, sometimes you need a stick, basically. You've got to be a bit forceful sometimes, and sometimes you've got to be a little bit, because sometimes there's genuine reasons, basically. So nip things in the bud there, and then explain to them that all dogs waste needs to be it's all in the terms and conditions. Well, we don't read them. They don't care, but at least if you've explained to them, you've got grounds to go back and say, we did explain this at the very start. Even if you acknowledge it on the terms and conditions, they'll just say, I didn't read it, I didn't see it. So yeah, I give everybody the price there and then. And to me, it just works. It's what I've always done. It's what seems to work. I'd say if I do 10 quotes a year, I'd probably get between 8 and 9 of them. And I'm happy with that number. Remember, you can't win everybody, unfortunately. You can't convert every lead. There is people out there that just aren't on this planet, like that lady where she pays someone £8 an hour to do the weeding. Some people just aren't on this planet. Some people are back in the 1800s, They just, and again, and don't be disheartened. Don't be disheartened if you turn up and they've lied to you. I've had this a few times last year, where they'll get you in to do one job and you'll go there and it's the complete opposite. They've just lied to you and you just wasted your time. Don't be afraid. I've seen in the past where people said about charging for quotes. I personally think that's a bad idea. I think it's an accepted as what it is that we're going to get, the odd quote where it's a waste of time. I've had it in the past where people have openly used me to get ideas and inspiration for the garden. And I just think to myself, if I've got the time, and you can tell sometimes with them, really, you either let it carry on and hope it'll buy you a bit of goodwill down the line, or you nip it in the bud and you do your roadrunner impression, basically. In my eyes, I always believe that I'm there to make the customer's life is easier. So I'll always leave the back's details on the quote. On the invoice. I've got a card where I can give to the customers with all of my back's details on and my email address. I don't sort of push people down one route or the other. I don't tend to take much cash. It's not that I'm not a fan of cash, but cash doesn't sit within my personal life. I don't spend cash. So as such, it's a lot easier for me for it to be baxed over. If customers say, we've got to pay you by cash, that's fine. You respect them at the end of the day. If customers say, I don't do online banking, could you come to me to pick the cash up? It's up to you, isn't it, really? Because there's nothing worse than having to ferry back and forward with bloody customers to get the money. Like I said, but I think with doing that, with providing a quote, by being in the uniform, all that sort of stuff, you're just showing to the customers that you are trusted, you're a brand. You're not just some fly-by-night bloke who's, love, 30 quid, cash. I always say, people say, we can pay you. It's quite prevalent with like the OAP community, and they're not aiding me in tax evasion, but they'll say, I'll pay you cash and you can do what you want with it then. My standard response to them is do you do online banking? Oh yeah, I do that. Would you please do that? I says, because I'm saving for a mortgage, all of my money go. It's true, it is genuinely easier for me if everything's backed through. So I think that's going to wrap it up, guys. We've gone on for nearly an hour now. Well, it will be an hour and about 8 seconds. So I'm going to leave this video here now, guys. I think I've covered all of what I wanted to talk about. As you can tell, I was very, very excited at the start. We've got some good episodes coming up with the podcast. I've got some good guests lined up. And I just think, I don't like tempting it, but looking at this year and looking at what I've got planned, I'm really looking forward to it, guys. And like I said at the start, so I don't mention this much for some reason, but I live in the Stoke-on-Trent area. So if ever you're free and you want to, or like I said, I don't charge for my time per se. Or if you want to meet up and you've got an issue with your business or you're just starting your business and you need a hand, genuinely, if I'm able to, I'll help you. I'm not a business expert guru, but I genuinely will try and help you as best as I can. And I do meet up with quite a few people off YouTube, and one of the things they always say, and I always say this, it's nice to talk to somebody who's in the same boat. I used to do it, with me, my ex-missus and friends and family. You moan about your garden, so you moan about customers and bad day, and they understand but they don't. They don't see how we do. It's like, I've got a customer, she late pays, well, just get rid of her. Well, it's not that simple, and it isn't. Just tell you want it. Dump the stuff on a drive. It's like, it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. But yeah, it says it's nice to talk to people. It really is. And the thing is, if I do, and this is one of my big things, is I do want to create almost a community for this, where I'm building up the Facebook group, the Instagram group. I think it's just hit 500 subscribers or followers on Instagram. And the Instagram group and the Facebook group are literally, it's all gardeners. It's all other self-employed people, and where it's the idea is if we all help each other or we all interact, we all have the same problems. This is why I like the garden maintenance group. It's nice when people talk about the problems, because people say how they solved that problem and how they fix that issue, and it's just nice. If we all help each other, we all charge a fair price, a professional rate, collectively the industry will rise as one. So as usual, guys, have a good day. And keep on gardening.